You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
Hello and welcome to Stimulus Tech Talk. I'm Nathan Whittacre, CEO of Stimulus Technologies, and I'm very excited this week to introduce you all to Emma Schermer Tamir, who's joining me. Welcome, Emma.
Hello, Nathan. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
It's my pleasure. So I'll read a little bit of bio around about you, and then we'll get going with our conversation. So,
Fantastic.
Emma transforms her insatiable curiosity into conversation-spiking copy. Through her thoughtful approach, proven copyright tactics, and winning strategies, Emma has led her team at Marketing by Emma to help over 1,500 businesses from around the world to boost their sales and build their brands online. As a thought leader and trusted consultant in the e-commerce and Amazon space, Emma demystifies complex topics like marketing, e-commerce, and branding to make them accessible for all backgrounds. She helps audiences to think deeper, get curious, and find unique solutions to complex problems. Whether she's speaking on stage across the globe, leading her team, or guiding clients, her goal is to empower everyone to tap into their curiosity to create stronger conversations, loyal fans, and killer brands. So lots of stuff you do there, Emma. So I'm excited to dive into it. So,
is there ever anything more awkward than having to listen to somebody read your bio? I think not.
It is always a little awkward. So, so I met Emma recently. We both joined a speaker academy through the National Speaker Association. And so we're both working on becoming better public speakers. But I was very excited to hear a little bit about her and her background. I think it's, what you do is very, very helpful for a lot of businesses. So just to start out, how did you get into commerce marketing? What's your background and how'd you get started?
Yeah, so I kind of fell into it. I had a background in marketing. I worked for a variety of different types of companies and different types of industries. So everything from software to fine dining. And when I met my now husband, he had a lot of friends that were in the e-commerce space, and they kept telling him how much they really needed a skillful writing to be able to help sell their products. And there just weren't a lot of options out there at the time, aside from either something like Fiverr or alternatively really big, expensive advertising agencies. And so through some loving nudging on my husband and business partner Ariz's part, we sort of just slowly started to enter that space by taking on a few clients. And then it pretty quickly started to grow into something that I realized I couldn't actually manage all of this independently. So we could either intentionally stay very small or we could grow a team. And we decided to grow a team.
Oh, excellent. So when you talk about e-commerce marketing, is it Amazon? Is it Shopify? Is it different websites? What kind of e-commerce do you work with?
So we have a big specialization in helping brands navigate the world of Amazon, but a lot of the same principles apply to really anywhere that you're selling and anything that you're selling. So I talk a lot through the lens of e-commerce, but the basic principles also apply to how to write a great email or how to engage with your team in a way to get them on board and aligned with your new objectives or partnerships. It's really basic skills in being able to forge connection and motivate people to want to be on board with whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do. And you just have a lot of external things that are happening when you take it into e-commerce, because there's a lot more competition, especially when you're talking about Amazon. You're not just in a controlled environment where you're selling just your business. Once somebody gets onto your website, you're going head to head with all of your top competitors. And not only is that within the search results, but you also get that even within the product pages themselves. There's all sorts of ad placements where your competitors can try to steal away your potential customers. And so you have to have a really strong sense of how you fit into the competitive landscape and how to communicate around that so that you give people a reason to choose you compared to all of the other categories out there.
So I'm sure that how you write it and how you present it really makes a difference. Can you give us an example of, some copy that you've done, or, maybe how you've been able to transform somebody's product to really stand out among those competitors, like you said, that are always on the site? What kind of things do you do to make it stand out?
Yeah, so it really starts before we even put any pen to paper or, fingers to keyboard, if you will, since we're not necessarily handwriting anything, but there are a few basic components that you kind of have to have clarity around in order to be able to then do an effective job with the writing. So part of that is really doing extensive research, not only in understanding who your competitors are and where your competitive advantages might be, how you can differentiate yourself, but even getting down into the SEO side of things and being really strategic with using and choosing the right keywords that you're going to be able to be competitive on and that you're going to be driving the right kind of traffic with. And so the keywords sort of are laying the foundation. They're forming the skeleton of what you are writing. And then you have all of this research that you're going to be taking to inform then the choices that you're using to really target your copy in a way that's going to convert that traffic that you're driving. Because, for example, if you are wanting to sell, let's say, a dog sleeping bag. I realize that sounds weird, but that is in fact a product category. So if you're trying to sell
I'm sure
a
it
dog,
is.
if you're trying to sell a dog sleeping bag, if you're going after just broader keywords like sleeping bag or warm sleeping bag or camping sleeping bag, there's most of that traffic is not going to be relevant for you, because most of that traffic is going to be looking for sleeping bags for humans, not for dogs. And so you want to make sure that you're finding those keywords and positioning yourself around the right strategy so that you're attracting people that are in fact looking for sleeping bags for dogs, or maybe, unique gifts for dog owners or what have you. I would need to actually dig into the research to do that. So that is very, very important, but it's pretty astounding just with the power of words, both from that SEO level as well as from the copywriting, which, combines everything from psychology and how you actually word things to sort of basic understanding of your category and customer and market. You can achieve really phenomenal things. We did a case study back in the spring with a software tool, and we were able to increase the conversion rate by over 200% just by updating the copy on the product page on Amazon. So that was
Wow.
through, yeah, like that's huge. And I think it's easy to get caught up in, most of the time, I think we think about how can we drive more traffic, but it's also really important to make sure before you're putting a lot of money into advertising and paying for that traffic, that you're making sure to be optimized so that you can convert that traffic. And it will make your ROI on every single ad dollar spent that much better.
Interesting. So I watched a YouTube video on you. Once they find you, or that you did, once they find you or your product, I really liked what you talked about the difference between features and benefits. And I think a lot of businesses often talk about their product or service features, kind of a litany of lists. But a lot of people don't necessarily buy on features. They buy on, maybe overcoming pain or trying to get some type of benefit for them out of that. So kind of maybe talk to us a little bit about what the difference is and how you go about really defining those benefits and what that does.
Yeah, so I think it's probably helpful first just to define what both of those are. So features, I consider those to be the immutable facts of the product. So that could be everything from dimensions to the materials that it's made of to the functions that it serves. It's not really something that you can dispute. It's not really, it's just, this is where it's manufactured. It can be a wide range of things. But then the reason why somebody would care about that is really what the benefit is. So why would the material of the sleeping bag for my dog matter to me? Well, it could matter because I'm going into really cold conditions and I want to make sure that my dog is going to stay safe. So I'm caring actually about something more than just a superficial keeping my dog warm, but I want to really protect my dog and make sure that he's going to stay safe in extreme conditions. So that's just one example of what a benefit could look like. And the way that you can find those is you just take whatever feature it is that you're wanting to talk about and you ask, why does this matter? And what you'll find is that you might actually have to ask that question a few times until you get down to the real emotional driver behind why someone would care about that. And there's also not necessarily just one right answer. It's very possible that a single feature could carry a wide range of different benefits, and then it becomes your job to figure out what benefits are going to be most compelling to the customers that you are trying to engage with, and then how can you present that in a way that's going to really make them feel seen and as the center of what it is. Because at the end of the day, everybody cares about themselves. And it's not, I don't mean that in like a negative sense. It's just the reality of when you are selling something to me, I'm receptive to that because I have a problem that I need to solve, or I have something that I'm looking to improve in my life. And so if you can make me feel like you understand the situation that I'm in and that you understand how to help me get to where I'm trying to go, then I'm going to trust you more. I'm going to be more excited to do business with you more. And so then that's, how we actually get the results that we're looking for.
So I guess it ends up going back to a lot of definition of what your target client, building that avatar of who you want to sell to and who's going to be looking for that product. And that really defines what those benefits are to them.
It absolutely. And you make such an important point, Nathan, which is that you have to have a lot of clarity of who you're selling to, and you want to get super specific, because if you are and this is a very common trap that I see businesses of all sizes and ages making, which is that they fall into this belief, understandably, that, well, everybody could be my customer. I'm selling something amazing. And so as long as you're between the ages of 18 and 100 or what have you, you would be a primary candidate for the thing that I am selling. And the problem with that is that an 18-year-old is going to have very different concerns than a 40-year-old that is going to have very different concerns than a 90-year-old. And then an 18-year-old in Las Vegas, where we are, is going to have a different set of concerns than an 18-year-old in rural Kansas or New York City. And then, we can keep drilling down. And so if you want to really have targeted language that's going to resonate with your customers, that's going to make them feel like you get them, then you have to have that precision of your customer and that avatar, as you mentioned, which is essentially a profile that you build out that has a lot of specificity of this imaginary customer that then allows you to be able to speak directly to them instead of this hazy blob of people all across the United States. And there's not going to be any specificity to that.
So in this, we talk a lot about in marketing about SEO for websites, a search engine optimization. Amazon has their own search engine too, how it identifies products, Google, for websites and things like that. So what advice do you have to small businesses when they're developing their plan to be found, their SEO plan?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The first thing that you want to be considering is, where are your customers? So going again back to that customer avatar, that might give you a lot of insight into the best places to focus your efforts. And so, if you are selling something that is more in the business to business space, then places like Google, it's going to be really important that you are optimizing your website SEO, that you have a blog strategy, etc. Versus perhaps if you're selling, a product, then it could be Amazon, it could be your Shopify site, it could be a number of things. So you need to understand what algorithm that you're going to be working with based on what platform you're choosing. And then from there, finding a tool that's going to help you identify what keywords you should be going after. Because what the keywords that somebody is searching on Amazon are not necessarily the same keywords that they would be searching on Google, which are not necessarily the same keywords that they would be searching on TikTok. And, believe it or not, TikTok is actually becoming a very popular search engine for Gen Z. And so if that's who your customers are, you really want to be considering that when you're thinking of ways to be organically or paid placement visible to your target customers.
Gotcha. So when you're developing this, I'm sure there's a lot of analytical data that you have to look at, but there's probably some creative stuff. You talk a little bit about that on your website, that there's a lot of creativity to this too. So how do you kind of balance the two, or how do they both go into designing good copy?
Yeah. So the SEO component that we're talking about, I like to equate it with a skeleton because it shouldn't be visible to the customer. If you can see the bone in my arm, then we have a problem and I need to be going to the emergency room. And so the one of the things that allows you to be able to do what you need to do from an SEO perspective while still keeping things very customer facing and reader focused is avoiding the temptation to want to keyword stuff, which that just means creating a long string of keywords. We probably all come across that from time to time.
Yeah.
Like an example would be great gift for birthdays, gift for Hanukkah, gift for Christmas, gift for anniversary. And it's like, okay, nobody actually writes that way. There's something that's off here and it doesn't read well and it's weird. So that, we also, regardless of what platform you have, most of them have back-end fields where you can incorporate more keywords. And so thinking about how you can be very selective with the phrases that you're using, but that they're never getting in the way or driving the decisions that you're making when it comes to content creation. Because if they're taking the wheel and if they're determining all of the choices that you're making, then you're probably going to have very stunted and awkward content that is going to fail to really connect with the customers. On the flip side, if you're just writing something that sounds amazing and you're not at all considering SEO, then you are going to have this great looking landing page or website that nobody's ever going to see because you're not giving it the opportunity to index and rank properly. So it really is that fine balance, but always, if you're keeping the customer front and center and really thinking about creating a conversation with them, then that's a way of being able to make sure that you are just choosing what to include and not to include. So if a customer is not going to care about that, then don't mention it. Or if the customer is going to get confused by that, then how can you explain it in a simpler way? And so really putting yourself into the mind of the customer and the experience that they have, that's kind of going back to the conversation about features and benefits. One of the other reasons why that's really important is I'm not always the most knowledgeable or informed about something that I need to purchase. And so it becomes the responsibility of the company to help me understand why certain things matter. And so that's actually a way of being able to simultaneously educate me and sell me on things, because you're explaining to me, well, it's very important that you choose a camera that has this style, this amount of resolution on it, or these types of abilities, because if you don't have a professional ability at focus. I don't know where I'm going with this example. I'm going far too technical and I don't have enough knowledge about cameras, but I guess that's exactly the point, right? I was just looking at my camera and then I started talking about cameras.
So you mentioned earlier, just like the blogs, for example. How does that fit into this? Like, for a business that's looking to get more information out there, how does their blog associate with all of this?
A blog is a fantastic tool at improving your SEO, but it's also a great tool for being able to engage in sort of that more upper funnel marketing. So more about, someone's not necessarily ready to make a purchase. They're more in the stages of educating themselves on something and learning about something. And so if you can actually be the resource that they go to learn about that particular thing, then you're already in the running when it comes time for them to want to make a decision to hire a service or buy a product, because now you're that authority that they trust, that they've learned from. And so it's almost a natural step in the sales process, instead of, cold calling, which that can be effective as well, but you're taking people that don't know who you are and that aren't necessarily ready to buy and trying to convince them why you're selling. So it's great for that. It's great for reputation management. It can be great for, it can be, for us, they generate a lot of leads. So we have quite a number of leads that reach out that say, oh, I found you researching this topic on Google and I want your help with this. And so
it builds you as the authority, the person that they're looking for, and you're just providing more information than just trying to sell them something.
Exactly.
So it's a different process.
Yes.
So I'm sure AI is really affecting your business. How, some people might say, well, I can just throw my product in ChatGPT and it's going to spit out some material for me. How is that different than what you guys do?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm sure whatever my answer is today, in 6 months or 2 months or next week, it'll be different because things are just changing so rapidly. And I was actually just having a conversation with a friend who, she works at Microsoft and she's working with a lot of this AI stuff. And so we were having this dialogue about all of the great things that AI can do, but then what does that really mean when it comes to brands finding ways to be able to kind of stand out? And so it's simultaneously democratizing things and allowing people that may not have a big budget or may not have the time or may not have the bandwidth to create something that's far better than what they would have been able to do in the past, either because they just wouldn't have been able to do it at all, or because they would have only been able to afford something that was fairly low quality. So it's leveling the playing field in that way. But simultaneously, it isn't really capable of super unique content. So things, at least right now, and this obviously will change as all of this gets more intelligent and skillful at things like content creation, but things still sort of have an air of AI generation. They don't have that personal experience. They don't have that nuance. They don't have that creative way of combining ideas, because this is pattern recognition that they're using, versus human experience, which might combine two very disparate things together to create a really fantastic example that the AI just would never be capable of considering. And so AI is fantastic for idea generation. Even for when we were talking about customer avatars, it can do some really good legwork for things like that. It should really minimize challenges like writer's block. But we find that brands that are wanting to be able to really create a long-term relationship with their customers, relying purely on AI is going to really hinder their ability at being able to kind of maintain that competitive edge that they need even more now because that playing field has been leveled. So I don't know if I got a little bit too kind of high level with that. If you'd like some more concrete examples, I can give those.
No, I think that's perfect because what you were saying made me think about when I was writing my book. I incorporated a lot of personal stories for my life outside of IT to better explain the IT concepts. And AI is never going to do that. They don't know my stories. They don't know my history. And so, you could ask ChatGPT to write a book on cybersecurity and it will spit out a bunch of stuff, but it's going to be just, like a textbook. It's not going to be intriguing. And I think that's a really good point that, that personalized content is so important when we're writing or when we're talking or whatever we're doing, and AI is just not there yet. Maybe someday it will replace us in that, but I don't think it is today. So
yeah, I feel the same way. So yeah, it's exciting to see where it's going, and it really is changing so rapidly. But I think, understanding that as humans, one of the things that we all crave is to feel connected with other people and feel like we're seen and understood and we belong. And so that's where that personal story and those personal experiences are so important. And they can really be even stronger tools that you actually have in this attempt to try to stand out and hold attention, because AI is also not just leveling the playing field, but it's allowing for a proliferation of content. And so if there's more and more content, people are more and more overwhelmed. And so that story is actually a way of being able to cut through that noise.
And it's how you stand out. It's how you differentiate from everybody else, and connect with people that have similar interests as you outside. So
exactly.
So what is the future for you? Where are you going with your company, Marketing by Emma, and with yourself? Where does this take you?
Wow, great question. I'm still figuring that out. No, so I continue to run Marketing by Emma. So we, take on clients that are looking to create product pages or trying to figure out how to be successful navigating the world of e-commerce. But I'm also taking on new clients in consulting. I also do workshops and lunch and learns and lectures. And so that's really where a lot of my passions lie. That's why I joined this speaking academy that you're also participating in, Nathan. And so that's, I think, just educating and having a lot of conversation around these different topics is what gets me really excited right now and where I'm putting a lot of my time and energy.
Excellent. So if somebody wants to connect with you, how do they find you?
You can go to marketingbyemma.com, and we have the contact forms, we have the phone numbers, we have the WhatsApp, we have the Facebook. It's all centralized there, but essentially whatever your preferred form of communication is, we're available most likely through there. We also offer a free audit of a product page or a landing page if you'd like us to take a look at something and give you our feedback on some of the ways that we think you might be able to improve the copy. We do that free of charge, and then it's something that you can take and apply yourself. Or if you would like to work with us, we're also happy to help and take it off your plate.
Excellent. And we'll be sure to include some links in the text content of this podcast. So, feel free to reach out to Emma. And again, thank you so much for being here and talking about marketing and how to better bring your products and services to the marketplace.
Thank you, Nathan. I've loved geeking out with you today about marketing and branding and storytelling. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for being here today. And I putting up with my little bit of a cold today. I've been under the weather the last couple of days. So I think we survived this. And thank you everybody for being here. And this is Stimulus Tech Talk. And have a great day.